All right. We're on.
We're on. Sweet. Well, here we are.
Yeah, let's get into it. I had a good time last time. Just fun to talk about business, that it's possible. It can be scary, but value creation, that's what it's all about. You have something, you possess something, have something inherently in you or that you've developed over time, and you can put that out to the world, and there are multiple billions of people that need what you have. I mean, okay, maybe not billions of people that have, but since there's billions of people, there are many of them that need what you have. And I believe that everybody in the world has something, some type of value that can be added to the world, and that value can be transferred back to them.
Well, and I think so. I mean, you kind of bring up a good point there too. I think a lot of people believe that in order to be successful in a business or whatever, they have to have an audience of 1 billion people or 1 billion customers. I look at a lot of like Second Amendment companies or, in our country right now, they're excluding probably half of the people. You know what I mean? Just because there may be a t-shirt company that does gun t-shirts or whatever,
Yeah.
But it kind of, to me, I think having a smaller audience, a niche audience, and a committed or passionate audience is better. So I think a lot of, just going off of that, I think a lot of people think they have to have a certain product that appeals to tons of people, but I really don't think that's the case. And that's where the beauty of it is. There is something for everybody to do in business, in entrepreneurship or whatever, because there are so many ways to hit niche markets and hit people that want exactly what you have to offer. So it doesn't take a ton of people, really. It just takes a committed group of people to use your business or service, and off you go. So.
Yeah. From the Second Amendment, I mean, flip it completely around, and you have a vegan t-shirt company. There's probably way less people that don't eat meat, way less people that don't eat meat. And there's probably some multimillionaire out there that's selling vegan t-shirts.
Yeah.
Because it's so niche that people are like, oh, I need that product. I have to have it. The t-shirt's $85, but I have to have it.
Mm-hmm.
Just, they're adding value, and people are happy to pay for that value. So business is not as hard as we make it out to be. People can go and get an associate's or a bachelor's or an MBA or, doctorate in business. And that's great. You can go learn some stuff. But when it comes right down to it, be legal, be moral, be ethical, add value, and you're going to be just fine.
Yeah. And I've wondered that a lot. If we overthink it, we get caught up in do I need an LLC? Do I need an S Corp? How do I file taxes with the state, or all of the steps that way? We overcomplicate it to the point that it's scary, where really business in take it down to the most, the simplest way. It's buying a bicycle, repainting the bicycle, fixing it up a little bit, and reselling it, buying a house, repainting the house, fixing it up a little bit, and selling it. I mean, that should be the focus, I think, is what is the value being created. And I think with colleges and society and everything else, we try to overcomplicate it purposely.
Yeah.
So that it seems like we need a piece of paper or something to go into business, when it's very simple. I mean, it's a lemonade stand on the corner.
Yeah.
It's not hard to get into business.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And something can be learned everywhere. The best way to learn it is to just go out and do it. Just go out, make some mistakes, fail forward, make it happen. And that's really what we're going to get into right now, is how, the how and how we do all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked about this just a little bit. I was doing some personal development this morning, and there's was talking about some of these things. And so I just jotted down some notes and was thinking maybe we could go over some of these questions. It kind of was right in line with what we were going to talk about.
Sweet.
So one that I put down here was, what do you feel is the biggest factor holding people back? And we kind of already went into that a little bit. But like anything, do you think, is it the technicality of it? Is it what will people think? What, maybe it's, maybe it's all of it, but
Yeah.
do you see any, I mean, you're talking to people all the time about this, and people that are wanting to change their situation and move from, maybe it's a job or a situation they're in, and move to something else. Is there any common themes with those people, why they don't want to make that jump, or maybe why they're scared to make that jump?
Well, I'd say the general answer would just be fear. I mean, fear in general, but then it goes deeper and more specific. So I would actually say the fear of the unknown. Because if we knew that we could go into business and be successful, be your own boss, make plenty of money, add value to the world, be able to retire early, everybody's going to do it.
Sure.
But that fear of the unknown holds people back. Now, some of the most successful people that we know, they thrive on that fear. That fear of the unknown is what drives them to make sure that they're always going to be okay. But I would say the fear of the unknown, and okay, that actually might be it. I mean, the fear of the unknown. How do I start the business? How's it going to be? How do I grow? How do I do this? Just that fear of the unknown.
Yeah. Are you afraid in business?
I'm afraid every day.
It really is. I mean, it's terrifying, especially going from something that is seemingly secure, or we're told is secure. And, I've had instance, most of the time when I've made a change from one thing to another, I didn't know what the exact next steps were. We've always kind of, and this might sound stupid, probably does. Now that I'm saying it, it does sound stupid, but we've always kind of just gone with a gut feeling, like, this isn't checking all the boxes for us. And so what are we going to do? Well, we don't really know, but we know this isn't the answer. And so if we keep doing this, we're going in the wrong direction. And so we're going to go and do that. And people are like, well, how did you know to do that?
Felt good.
Just knew, you know. And so, but that goes completely against what everybody.
It is. What's
thinks.
Interesting about that, though, is the people who are going by the gut feeling are probably the risk takers, the business owners, the ones that are employing the people that want more security. They want more safety. Nothing wrong with that. Like we've said before, nothing wrong with security and safety. We just choose to take a more risky venture. Now, what I'm seeing is the irony there is the people who want nice and steady are actually working for people who are going off of their gut feeling. So their job,
everybody's involved in a gut feeling, whether they like it or not.
Exactly. So they feel like everything is good and secure because they've got that job and it's a big company. And so we're all good. The leaders of that big company are like, hey, that feels right. Hope it's the right decision. They don't really know. Sometimes, there's that book, Good to Great, where these companies, massive companies, just get bigger and better. And then is it good to great and then too big to fail? And I think it talks about kind of those same companies, but then they do fail. There are some that do fail, even though they look like they'll never fail. Well, these are people that are going off of gut feelings and stuff. It's okay. But then people who are working for them, well, that sucks. We were looking for security and safety. Didn't happen.
There really isn't anything that's 100% secure.
No. Even like we talked about last time, we have friends that are in public service. They're the most secure jobs that exist, but where their security is lacking is now in keeping their paycheck enough to pay for food and housing.
Yeah, with the inflation and wages and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest motivators for me, thinking about the unknown, this last time when we went away from a job. I say we, because me and my wife are
Yeah.
always, it's always a mutual decision. And we've always been that way. But we decided to go away from that. I think one of the biggest motivators was we could see, I mean, if you're in a job or a career, you can kind of figure out, okay, this is what my lifestyle is going to be for the next X amount of years. This is what my retirement's going to be. And that's kind of set in a way. There's lots of things that can happen in there, but we kind of looked at that and we're like, that doesn't check any of our boxes either. And so, yeah, sure, there's the certainty or the uncertainty and the unknown by going away from that. But if we're not super stoked and excited and the known of what that will produce is what we want in a lifestyle, why would we pick that? You know what I mean? We were almost more willing to pick the unknown than the known that wasn't exciting or the lifestyle we wanted. I mean, in our mind, that's what, if we were picking that, then we were saying no to potentially the potential of building the lifestyle that we had a vision for ourselves. So that was kind of one way that we looked at it. So anyway, but
I like that.
But that uncertainty's killer. Here's another question, but we kind of did that one. So this is, what were some challenges that we personally had to overcome to quit, say like a job, or doesn't even have to be a job, a situation that we were not enjoying, or not even that. I don't even want to say enjoying. I think it's so hard to say like, oh, I quit that, because it's such a negative connotation, in our, where I was before was good.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was a good place. I was working with good people. For the most part, it was a good thing. And so I think a lot of people think, well, there was negative things around that. Not really. I mean, there were some things that maybe, whatever, I don't agree with. Everybody has that. But it was a good opportunity, and an opportunity that I'm thankful for. It just was moving on to the next step to find something more, I mean, it wasn't necessarily a negative thing.
Yeah. It would almost be better to say I was over it.
Yeah.
Not like I didn't quit because of the negative. I wasn't finding the level of fulfillment that I had 10 years previous.
Exactly.
And that level of fulfillment had gone up, and then it had gone down. And I didn't want to live a life of not going to work and feeling fulfilled and happy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be much better for those patients in the ambulance and homeowners that I'm not there. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing. We get so caught up on the identity. Well, I am this. Well, no, I'm Tyler and my job is this, or I'm Tyler and my work is this, or my business is this. But you're Matt. Like I don't see you as Matt the paramedic, as Matt the farmer.
Mm-hmm.
You're Matt, but
Mm-hmm.
you have farmed and you've been a paramedic. And I think that's really important to remember. I was just meeting with one of our friends earlier, and there is that identity. There's that, if I quit, who am I? I don't know. Who are you? Because you're not a paramedic and a firefighter. That's your job. So who are you? I don't know who I am. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Well, and as a society, that's exactly what we label with, like when we meet somebody, hi, how are you? What do you do? Like, we're implying what is your job, what I mean? And that was hard for me. Still is, kind of, because people are like, well, what do you do? Well, I'm a business owner, well, what kind of, I mean, and so you kind of go down the rabbit hole, because I'm not exactly sure what I am or what I want to be when I grow up, but
if you say entrepreneur, they're like, oh, you're unemployed.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Until you get, it's funny because like even talking with lenders or whatever, and I see where this comes from, but it's like, oh, you're starting your own business. Yeah, we don't want anything to do with you.
For sure.
5 years from now, when your business is flourishing, they're like sending you, like the gift baskets at Christmas. So you'll come in and do some business. It's like, wait a minute, where were you 5 years ago?
Yeah.
When I wanted to start out.
Like, sorry, I deal only in cryptocurrency now. I'm over banks.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting, but that identity is hard to overcome. And I think it's our society. I don't think it's individual pressure as much as it is society pressure, just overcoming that. But
yeah. How much better would the world be if you met someone, you're like, oh, your name is Sally. Like, Sally, what do you do? I'm a stay-at-home mom. And you just know that she wanted to be. And Sally's good at it. Hey, what are you? I am a school teacher. And they're happy. They are a school teacher. That's their persona. And they're good at it. But instead, it's like, what do you do? I work at Brolum's. Well, I can't say Brolum's, but say whatever. Nothing wrong with that. In this case, they're wanting to move up to the corporate ladder. So,
well, any examples we give on here, it's not demeaning to anybody. It's just for instance. I mean,
I worked at Brolum's.
We have. Well, and I think personally, I think most people want to move up, and so us saying, "Hey, you're working at Brolum's or working at McDonald's or whatever," we're just talking to those people that want to move up. That's it.
Yeah.
If you're happy where you are, no matter what that is, this conversation is not really for you.
Yeah.
If you're happy being whatever it is and making $10,000 a year and you can get by on that and provide for yourself and everything, and you're totally happy, that's being successful in my book.
Absolutely.
And this doesn't necessarily apply for you about going somewhere else if that's not what you want. I think we're specifically speaking to the people that are like, yeah, this is where I am, but I want to move up.
Yeah.
So any kind of thing that we talk about doctors and lawyers too. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
So,
well, we live in a unique time too, where if people want to move up, those jobs are going to be open. I think we said it in the last episode, there are major workplaces that are taking away that university requirement because they can't find people to get into positions. And I think this is a huge opportunity for people to go, hey, I've welded my entire life, but I don't have a welding certificate. You go apply to that job that dream job that you've always wanted. You might get it now.
Yeah.
We're just in a unique time.
And make a bunch of money because they can't keep anybody there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And on an even lesser note, we went to a Taco Bell in Phoenix, Arizona the other day. And I'll be honest, my first thought of the appearance of the kid that was working there was kind of like, oof. And then I caught myself and I was like, why am I making that instant judgment? There's a kid working.
Yeah.
Holy crap. Yeah. There's someone actually working here. Yeah. And I told him, I was like, hey, you're young and here with the job. Good for you, man. Like you're going places in your life. There's a lot of kids that won't do it. There's a lot of adults that won't do it. So yeah. People can get out and they can do whatever they want to do, and they can do it right now. Right now is a great opportunity. It's the revolution, the entrepreneurial revolution. So how do we do it?
Yeah, for sure. I just had a thought. What was it? Oh, on the identity thing, kind of back. I mean, not to go back, but I've thought a bunch, and I've done this a couple times, but I want to continue to do it and make it more of a habit. But when I introduce myself, hey, my name's Matt. What's your name? Hey, my name's Tyler. Cool, Tyler. What do you like to do for fun?
Yeah.
How much better of and when I have done that, I get to know that person a lot quicker, and we find things that we have in common a lot faster than, hey, what's your job?
Yeah.
If it's like, hey, what do you like to do for fun? And I like to fish, and oh, cool. Like, I just hit the Henry's Fork and blah, blah, blah. Pretty soon you're like off in the weeds in a great conversation.
Yeah.
Whereas with a job, it's so lame sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, I'm a XYZ. oh, well, I mean, it's
Yeah.
hard to
Well,
really
some people are
continue that.
embarrassed about it. Like, hey, what do you do? I'm a checker at a gas station. But you almost no, that's cool. You're a checker at
Yeah.
a gas station. That's great. Good
Yeah.
for you. What do
Yeah.
you want to, what do you do for fun? And where do you want to be in your career? Well, I really want to be a race car driver. Cool. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think that that's a great way to, you know, I like that too. And just leading into the conversation to really get to know people instead of as a society on the surface, it's like, which we see it everywhere, right? I mean, they want us in, uh, your black, white, green, blue, pink, whatever, your sexual orientation, like all these labels. And it really takes the individualism out of
Yeah.
it, I guess. But
Um,
anyway,
that is an interesting thought. In them meaning like some powers to be that I don't know exactly who them are, wanting us to be ourselves and unique, we're actually getting labeled harder by,
way
what,
harder, I think.
yeah, what are you exactly? I saw a video the other day, and this is a pretty far off subject, but it was a lady that was like, I am a non-binary. Oh, did I just say lady that's non-binary? I'm sorry. I believe that this was a person that was born female, that said, I'm a non-binary. And she goes on this list of everything, like um, a survivor of non-acute and acute trauma and transmasculine, um, non-monogamous, like just went off on this whole list. And I'm like, do you just want to tell me your name
Mm-hmm.
and I'll get to know you? I was just so weird to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a whole list of labels instead
Yeah,
of like,
like,
hey, let's figure out what you do for fun or what you
yeah,
want to accomplish in
out
life.
of
And let's
all of
talk
that
about that.
out of all of that stuff, what I got out of it is you're a person.
Yeah.
Cool.
And there's almost like an expectation that somebody should be treated differently depending on their label.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, why are we doing that? Why aren't
Yeah.
we just figuring out, hey, you're,
The content of their character.
yeah, I mean, it's so weird.
It is weird. Little off subject, except for that,
Not
in
really.
the
I
world
mean,
in the world that we live in, we kind of need to know and discuss this stuff because partly because of this, some of that stuff is coming up and people are losing their jobs and they don't know what to do. They don't know how to maneuver in this weird workplace, and so they might be heading out and saying, what do I do? Well, you have some value that the world needs. It's time to start your own business.
well, and I think that's exactly like we were talking about at the first. You can, sometimes in the workplace, our identities or our true beliefs kind of get undermined or thrown under the bus, and you can't say that, you can't say that, you can't say that, and you have to conform to this, and be pretty like just the same. Everybody's pretty much the same in a workplace or whatever. That's the beauty of entrepreneurship is you can say what you believe, you can do what you believe, you can start a business that you believe in, and through that process you attract all the people that have the same values as you. You don't have to convince somebody that they have to come to your business or that they should, I mean, we just got all this political correct stuff where, as a company, you have to, go out and be whatever, I mean, all these groups, you have to pick from this, and this. As a small business owner, you just do your thing. And I mean, granted, it's getting tougher, but you do your thing and you get to attract your tribe, I guess, of people, and so it's kind of cool that we can do that and be an individual that we get eventually you're associating with people that are exactly like you.
Yeah.
So anyway, off in the
that.
weeds, but I
No,
like
it's
it. It's good
Yeah, I
off in
like
the
it.
weeds. So what was some of the pushback to your decision to switch it up, move, quit, move on, whatever?
My mind. Because people are always going to have a reason why you're going to fail.
Yeah.
You know, hey, that sounds scary. You're gonna give up that education. You're gonna this. You're gonna that. Really, it comes down to your own head. At least for me, it came down to my own head. Can I do this? Well, I sold myself pretty well to every leadership interview that I had. You know, like, I want this job. Well, I go and sell how good I am. Want this promotion? I go sell how good I am. Well, this was the ultimate job interview with myself. Am I good enough? Can I go out and actually make this happen? All right, get out of my head. Let's make it happen. So the pushback was me. The world has pushback, but they don't matter.
I love that answer. Because there is, I mean, there's always, even from family and friends and whoever, nobody ever thinks it's a good idea. I mean, but that I think mindset is the number one thing, right? I mean, we make up lots of things in our heads that just aren't true. And so that was a big part for me as well, as getting my minds, and still is, like, every day.
Oh yeah.
It's going through, I try to do what I call personal development every day, which is, reading a good portions of a business book or a mindset book, or mindset's something that I've focused on a lot over the last year. But we make up so much stuff that's not true. And we're really not very kind to ourselves a lot of time.
Yeah.
And then when you stop and break it down, it's like, well, I'm going to fail in this business, or there's the possibility that I'm going to fail in this business or whatever. And you go back and look at your past track record, there's probably not that much failure.
Yeah.
You probably, most people succeed more than they fail by probably a long shot.
Yeah.
We just somehow in our minds beat up on ourselves to the point that we believe that we're not going to be able to do something that we put our mind to. But like you said, how many successful jobs have you had? How many successful interviews have you done, or promotions have you had, and all that kind of stuff? Well, those were all successes. How is that any different than building a business?
Yeah.
And being successful in that?
Yeah. And anytime you want a job promotion, you're kind of faking it till you make it. You're becoming something different. And really in business, that's it. So when I made the decision to stop working for someone else and work fully for myself, I kind of had preset in my mind what that would look like. Then you have to become that. So if I want, I mean, just on a basic level, if I want to be 10% body fat, it's pretty easy. You just have to eat what 10% body fat people eat and exercise how 10% body fat people exercise. Well, that's pretty simple. But a lot of times we think of it differently. We think, well, I need to become that. I need to be that, and then I can become that. But we become and then we be. So in a business, you have to become. Am I making any sense?
Yeah.
So I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to just instantly become a business owner, because that's what you are now.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to be a business owner that makes $10,000 a month, then you have to learn the skills to make that happen. Like Donald Trump, for example, polarizing name, Donald Trump. Is he content with being a millionaire?
No.
When he loses billions, how long does it take before he's a billionaire again? Not very long. He is a billionaire. He's not a millionaire. And if he loses it, he'll gain it back. And it's becoming that. That's the important part. That's also the fun part. That's the fulfilling part. The fulfillment doesn't come after, when all of a sudden you have a successful business and you have the money and you have the chance of early retirement. It's becoming all of that. That way, if you lose it, you can just do it again.
Yeah. I think that's, especially for people now, that mindset of well, no matter what's going to happen, you know, I almost see that we are moving from I'm going to get a job, work there for the rest of my life kind of thing to I'm going to learn how to succeed no matter what happens, you know, because I mean, who would have seen COVID? Ever, you know, and or any of the, you know, the things that have happened over the last decade, you know, there's always stuff like that. And so I almost wonder if that's it too, is just that self-reliance mentality of, well, no matter what, I'm going to figure it out. And that kind of stuff. And I love that example about Trump, because how many times do we shoot ourselves in the foot because we focus on a smaller goal than what we could have, you know? If we, you know, maybe the job is a $50,000 a year job, and we think that that's, you know, like, oh, well, that's a comfortable living. Okay, that's great. But if we're focusing on the $50,000 mark, are we missing out on $1 million mark? Just, you know what I mean? Because just because our focus isn't there on that. And then it's interesting to think about too, because then the job or whatever it is that we're unsatisfied with, again, if you love the $50,000 a year thing and you're totally just into it, great. But if you're doing it because you know, you think it's secure or safe or whatever, but you hate it, that might be the biggest opportunity cost. You know, you're letting maybe a $50,000 job stand in the way of $1 million business or something like that. But we just don't see it. But I think that that's totally it, is what we focus on is what becomes our reality, really. For Donald Trump, that's being a billionaire and not a millionaire.
And we have this part in our brain called the reticular activating system. And how you can know that it exists is if you go and look at, let's say, a white Suburban, and you're like, there can't be that many white Suburbans around, until you go and test drive one. And then you see how many people are driving a white Suburban. And what has happened is it's now in your mind that white Suburbans exist, and everybody has a white Suburban. So in our mind, I know that 50,000 was preset in my mind for a long time. My dad growing up said, and this back in the day, he was right. He said, to make a good living, you need to make $50,000 a year. Well, 30 years ago, that was okay. So I always thought, I just need to have a good job, and a good job is $50,000 a year. Well, I got that job, and it was a good job. But as soon as I kind of upped that in my mind, different opportunities presented themselves. So if we're walking around with any mentality, now let's just take it on to something else, and you go, just focus straight on business. And you go, I'm focused on a small town and popsicles. That's an opportunity. You know, you can go sell popsicles. That's great. Now what if we focus on the state? Oh, this opportunity popped up. Now I can sell in 10 different cities. It all comes down to mindset, how big we want to go, and then the type of influence. So, you know, if you're focused on one person, there's that circle of influence, and then 2, and then 3, and then that network starts to get bigger. Now we start to get into like the Google effect, the Facebook effect. Once those connections are made, all of a sudden it turns into thousands,
exponential,
tens of thousands, millions. It's just where we set our brain.
Well, and I wonder, you know, one thing that I like to do a lot is hunt. And so I've kind of thought about that in the context of, how do you shoot a big deer? Like there's steps, you know, to shoot what would be considered a trophy mule deer, let's say. Well, you know, and so a lot of times we get caught up in, oh, well, I need to shoot right. I need to have the best binoculars so I can glass for that deer. I need to know the area and where I'm going to hunt. And we focus on all of that stuff, when really the first rule is to not shoot a small deer. You know, I mean, you shoot a small deer and you ain't going to shoot a big one, you know? And so I've thought about that a lot. Like, am I focused on just anything? Like, I'll shoot anything. Doesn't matter. I'll shoot whatever. Well, then it doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter if that's the mentality. if the mentality is, I want a 200-inch, blah, 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 whatever it is, and you're real particular about that, sure, there's a chance that that might not happen, or you might settle for something a little bit less or whatever, but you still shot something bigger than you would have if you just blanket say, I don't care, I'll take whatever.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of thought about that too with opportunities. There's always in our world today, there's opportunities everywhere.
Yeah.
Like how many ideas do you have a day where you're like, that would be a good business, and then it's like, wait a minute, I can't like spread out too much, but man, somebody could really do good at that.
Yeah.
Happens all the time. Or maybe you've experienced this too, where I'm like, oh, that would be a great idea for that or whatever. Within a year or two, somebody else has done it almost exactly the same as what I thought should do, And so I think a lot of times opportunities aren't exclusive to us, but they're coming all the time, and we get to choose which ones we want to take advantage of depending on our goals and everything else.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I don't know.
And who knows, maybe you put that thought out there and someone who was ready and their reticular activating system was ready for it, they just caught it.
Mm-hmm.
I think there were 3 different people from all around the world creating the television at the same time. None of them had contact with each other. This is back, I don't know, 30s, 40s, whatever it was, maybe earlier. It's not like they had Instagram and they're like, hey, I'm trying to build a TV. They literally had no idea that each other were working on a television all at the same time. Just interesting.
That's crazy.
A little bit off, but just crazy.
Yeah. Well, and do you think, I totally am a believer that thoughts are things.
Yeah.
And that we can manifest stuff. I think a lot of people get hung up because they think it's like, oh, well, it's magic hocus pocus. Like you think it in your brain and then it manifests itself, like your brain creates stuff. And I don't really think that that's the case, but I think the opportunity was probably always there.
Yeah.
And then we just get our mind in a situation, to the point that it can finally see that, kind of like the white Suburban example, or something. But
well, you even have recent examples. Trump and many of them were like, oh, it's probably going to be 3 to 5 years before we have a vaccine. Well, in less than a year, they had a vaccine out for it. And now I wonder, what if we took that same amount of energy and enthusiasm and said, hey, we've had an internal combustion engines for a long time. We also know that green energy is not as good as we are touting it to be. How about we come up with an alternative to the internal combustion engine, and it can't be these electric motors that we've been using, and it can't be diesel, and it can't be steam. Go and actually let it happen. I imagine there's something way better than an internal combustion engine that's out there. We just haven't allowed it to come to fruition, but it's out there. The thought's there, or the building blocks for it. We just haven't put the thoughts out enough to make it happen, or someone has, and then they've been offed.
Yeah.
So,
well,
I don't know.
That's true too. Well, and that kind of goes back to the gut feeling thing, right? I used to think like, oh, gut feelings, just acting on that's kind of reckless. But anymore, I kind of feel like the gut feeling is those thoughts, and the universe, or whatever the spirit, or whatever you call it, is giving thoughts and inspiration for those things, and so anymore I'm like, it's not really a gut feeling, it's more I believe it's inspiration and that kind of stuff. And so I don't know, it's kind of crazy to think about. But it's cool to see that happen, because then I feel like you can rely on that more and more and more for bigger growth and bigger things going forward. But I don't know.
I like that a lot.
It's crazy because this is like the just like the focus and everything, like it's exactly what I was thinking through this morning, like the Suburban example and stuff. So it's cool. It's interesting to, I think with success, it's the principles are all the same, right? It's just people saying them in different ways.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see.
Well, I think sometimes too, if maybe someone's watching this and the title was like, the how to success or the how to business. They're like, wait, where's the steps? Well, we've talked about that before. The steps are easily found online. You need to get the right insurance. You need to set up your LLC. You might need a retail location. You need to negotiate your rates, this and that. Those steps are there. That just has to happen. So we don't really even need to talk about the steps. But that mindset is really important. Knowing that you're going to mess up. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to learn from those mistakes. Then you're going to make bigger mistakes. Then you're going to learn from those mistakes. And then you're going to call someone who's more successful than you and you're going to get some advice. And that kind of stuff, that's where real success comes from. Like my brother-in-law called you the other day. This kid has no reserve calling someone who knows more than him and saying, hey, can you help me out? And anyone who's more successful than him's like, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm here for you.
Yeah.
Let's make this happen. No one's out there like, there's this up and coming kid and he's going to take business away from me. No, everyone wants to share their success. And if they don't, they're probably not going to be successful for long.
For sure.
It's getting out there and it's failing forward. It's faking it till you make it. The same stuff that's been taught by Tony Robbins and Jack Canfield and T. Harv Eker and all those
Hill and
all the people for you. It's the same stuff that works.
Well, and it's interesting to think that there's a huge market for that. People are making so much money just regurgitating that information. It just goes to show how hungry we are for that.
Yeah.
I think as humans, we're always wanting to do better, even if somebody's content doing whatever it is. I think in the back of everybody's mind, there's probably a desire to improve and do better. I think that's just something that we're naturally given. We're naturally designed to be creators and make things better and improve and that kind of stuff.
And every prophet or anyone, I mean, what's I'm not good at direct quotes. So Bible, ask and you shall receive, knock and
shall be opened,
and it shall be opened unto you. Like, well, I wonder what that's talking about. Well, maybe it's talking about anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like put the thought out in the universe and seek, and you'll get your answer. Maybe you start the wrong business, but at least you put it out there and you tried. You're going to get your answer. Answer might be, hey, that not a lot of market for that business. Then you pivot and you keep going. How many people have quote failed and then they're an overnight success? Most of them that are the overnight success. They just learned for years.
Yeah. And the overnight success was probably 10, 15, 20 years worth of failures and learning. Right.
Yeah. I truly believe that anybody who has the desire to get out on their own and make it happen, they can. They just are going to have to develop some things like resiliency and knowing that we either win or we learn. And either way, we're learning. And we could go deeper.
Well, and so here's another question too, that I think a lot of people get hung up on is, did you know, so say you're at your job and you're saying, maybe I like my job, maybe I hate my job, but I feel like there's something more that I want to do with my life, whether that's legacy or make more money or more time or lifestyle or whatever. Because we were both at that exact same point at one point in time, or maybe multiple times in the past. How do you, at that point, did you know exactly what the perfect business or next step was? I think a lot of people get hung up on that.
Yeah. I didn't know it at the time, and I still don't know it now. I know what our businesses are, and I know what financial steps we're taking for more security and more prosperity, but I don't have it all laid out, because every day something happens that pivots and we just have to adapt and overcome. So I didn't know it then. I'm probably more aware of it now, but but not completely aware. And it's a continuum, I think, a continuum that you never actually get to the end of.
Yeah. I always thought there was an end, but I'm seeing now like same kind of thing. It's just always a process
Yeah.
that you're always working through. Did you, because you've started a couple new businesses within the last year.
Yeah.
So think back before, so say a year ago or a year and a half ago, were any of the, and maybe some of them were, but is there businesses that you've started or even just projects that you've started that you didn't even know existed a year and a half ago?
Yeah. Yeah. And reticular activating system, it's opening up and it's being open to those things. If you're in it, we talked about this last time. If you're in a job, you might just be so busy that you don't know that that stuff exists.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you're opened up to the possibilities are completely endless. Um, I like we've said, we don't want to demonize jobs. There's places for everybody, and we want people to just be happy where they are. And if you're happy and fulfilled where you are, then that's great. Now I'm going to make it a little more negative. So I've heard people say that a job is just over broke, and in a way, it is. You're going to make just enough money to be just broke enough that you have to go to work again the next day. I try not to be like that as far as an employer. I want our people to know that we're always here for them. We've got their back. I want to see them succeed and grow. Maybe they want to work for us forever, but if they don't, I'm going to help them get to the next spot. And that just over broke part, that's the hard part.
Mm-hmm.
We actually don't make a ton of money in each individual business that we have. And part of the reason why is because as the business grows, we try to just pay our people more because they're the integral parts to what make everything happen.
And reinvest in the business to make it better or bigger or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where we've found success is by having multiple businesses where we can take a little bit from each one. Then it ends up being more just because there's a collective of businesses. But that's kind of where our reticular activating system, that's where our mindset is right now. Now, if we grow each individual one of those businesses, then something can be different, but it's all a process. Maybe that'll happen. Maybe it won't. Maybe we'll choose something different. I don't know. But part of that being open to it, I think, is actually what makes us at least in our own minds, successful.
Yeah. And so you said that you've started businesses within the last year that you didn't even know existed 18 months ago or 2 years ago or whatever. Have you quit? Is there businesses or projects that you've started to go down that road and then you're like, you know what, that's just not right now? Or
yeah,
I still love the project, or what, or maybe, nope, that's completely not something we want to do. Or have you quit multiple things too?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a very important thing for people to know, that they might start down a path, and when it doesn't feel right or everything's not adding up how it should, it's okay to abandon it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not failure. Starting a business and ending a business on purpose is 100% not failure. You didn't put everything into it and then you just couldn't make it work. I actually don't think businesses fail.
Yeah.
People stop them.
Yeah.
Before.
And I think too that stopping or quitting, I mean, there's kind of a difference there, right? If it gets hard and you're like, this sucks, I don't want to, whatever, and you're just quitting because maybe you're lazy or something. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm moving forward, I'm going, and this just isn't right. So I'm abandoning it or going a different direction. I think that happens all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I can think even in the last 12 months, I mean, shoot, I've done 4 or 5 or 6 different things, and 3 or 4 of them, maybe I'm like, that's just not it. It's a great idea, but it's not something that we're going to do right now.
So how many of those failed?
None of them failed. I just walked away from them and just didn't do them anymore.
Yep.
Or I wanted to focus more on, I could see more potential in other things.
Yeah.
And so it was like, well, let's keep going down that. That's exciting or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that's the other thing too, is people might be standing in the job or the situation they're in, and it's like a brick wall, and they're like, well, what's the next step? Where do I go? And I think that just it doesn't really matter what the next step is as long as you take it.
Yeah.
Just get moving in that direction, get looking for opportunities, kind of, if there's things that are taking a lot of focus or attention, weed some of those things out and clear up some space so you can look and open up your thinking to other opportunities. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it might take 3 or 4 things to get really into something that's good, or I don't know.
Yeah. Gain momentum.
Mm-hmm.
It momentum is a real thing. It's a real thing in business, but if you don't take that first step or start to wander a little bit, no momentum is ever gained. But when focused momentum is present, things happen that you'd never believe. I mean, I remember when we had started, um, we had started, well, the rock climbing gym was quite a while ago. The fitness gym was a few years after that. And then we combined them into one building. And I met with a guy, and he said, "You're at the point where things are going to start to grow more than you, faster than you think." I was like, "Oh, what do you mean?" He went, "Well, it's momentum. You have the momentum, so you need to ride this momentum out." I'm like, "Okay." And then you need to start adding to it so that the momentum doesn't stop. It's like the whole flywheel principle.
Mm-hmm.
Takes a lot to get that flywheel to move, but then after a while, it's just kind of like, yeah, you give it a little nudge. You give it a little nudge.
Yeah.
Then your water might turn down a little bit, or maybe the wind is hitting in the other direction. You got to give it a little extra. But momentum is real. You got to make those first steps. Yeah, you might get knocked off course a little bit. Keep going, and then the snowball effect. I'm going to use all these analogies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The snowball starts down the hill, and then it gets bigger and bigger, and by the time it gets to the bottom, it can take out trees and buildings and houses. But that's not going to start unless you walk up to the snow and make a ball.
And I think that's important too, is looking at all of those little, individually, people maybe kind of pick those apart and say, oh, well, that's a failure, or that's a failed business. But it's not. It's part of that momentum. You're learning, you're growing, you're looking for opportunity. So I think that that's maybe back to that mindset thing too, is not being so hard on ourselves that we're looking at every individual thing as a failure, but it's a success in the overall process of learning and growing. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Um, Earl Nightingale, in The Strangest Secret in the World, he says that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So that doesn't even have an end point. And I kind of said it in the beginning when we talked about a mom who is a mom because she wants to be a mom and she's good at it. School teacher who wants to be a school teacher and they're good at it. Those are successes.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that if you want to be something and you're trying to be good at it, that's where the fulfillment comes in. So, Earl Nightingale and that whole thing, there's a fulfillment component that brings success. And like we said last time, I'd rather make $50,000 a year doing something I love than $100,000 a year doing something that I hate. That fulfillment component is huge. So if people are wanting to leave something that is not fulfilling them, that's not bringing them happiness, chase fulfillment and then figure out how to monetize your fulfillment. Add value to people with something that fulfills you. You can't go wrong. You're not going to work anymore. You're going to you. You're
Yeah.
going to what brings you joy, brings you happiness. We both have a friend who ran a uh, like a refrigerator, and they would sell fridges, and I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
like a
Mm-hmm.
hometown Sears.
Mm-hmm.
Then they sold that and they run a chocolate company now. He said people come there because they're happy and they leave happy.
Happier.
Yes. Yeah, they come happy and they leave happier. And before it was like they came because their refrigerator had broken and they were mad and they knew they're going to have to spend all this money. Well, his level of happiness went way up because he all of a sudden started focusing on something that made others happy. And he just found that by selling chocolate, people were happy, and then he was happy, and it brings him fulfillment. And there has to be someone out there that is going to sell refrigerators and dishwashers and everything. He just found that over the last 20 years, he had shifted and wanted to do something different. He did. It brought him more happiness.
Yeah. Well, there's no, and so was the first, back to your question, was the first business a failure?
No,
Yeah.
no. In fact, he sold it to someone else who enjoyed it.
Mhm. Yeah. We're kind of in that, we have a business right now that's kind of in that phase. It's something that we were excited about 6 or 7 years ago. Mainly my wife, I was somewhat involved, but she just loved it. And over the last couple years, she's, just some things have with the company have changed, and just it's just different than it was.
Yeah.
We've changed, and she's really struggled with that. Like, well, if I stop doing that, then I failed. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
like you've made, you know, a good amount of money for what you've done. So that's a success, number one. Not that that should be the only gauge of success, but we've learned a lot through that process. She's grown a lot through that process. She's a very creative person, and so she was excited about it, and really has grown as a human being. And so no, it wasn't a failed business at all. It's
Yeah.
just, well, it's not what I'm into,
Yeah.
and I'm moving on to something else.
Yeah. And she
Great.
helped thousands of people.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, but I think back to that thing. Sometimes we're hard on ourselves to say, oh well, I didn't do that for 50 years like you hear about people doing, and it doesn't have to be that. We don't have to do something for 50 years for it to be successful.
Yeah.
You know, um,
Yeah, absolutely.
so
And maybe the morbid thought of the day is we're very quickly forgot when we die. So we might as well be really happy and fulfilled when we live, because afterwards, we're kind of gone. So,
yeah,
don't live a life of misery just to get by when you could live a life of fulfillment and still just get by.
yeah.
Man, go out and do things that make you happy.
Well, and isn't it that like over, is it like 70,000 a year or something like that? Like the amount of money that people, the the amount of happiness that additional money brings to people is basically nothing. Like their happiness tops out at 70,000 a year, basically. I think there's been some
Is that
studies on that.
adjusted for inflation?
Yeah, well, yeah, 70,000 3 years ago maybe, or
Yeah.
something like that.
I think I know what
So
you're
like a
talking about,
hundred
though.
thousand now or whatever.
Wasn't
But
it like 75,000 and 4 kids, something like that?
I don't know. I don't know.
I,
The kids equation throws it off because it
yeah, that's
depends on
true.
the day for me.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like,
Yeah, I don't even remember where I read that, but it was their happiness does top out. And I've heard a lot of very successful people that are like, look, money doesn't bring you happiness, but it is sure a lot easier to be happy when
yeah,
you're not worrying about money. And so, from a very basic standpoint, we can do an entire episode on this. Just be smart with your money.
yeah,
If you go to get a car and they're like, how much can you afford? That's the wrong question.
yeah,
How much does the car cost? And do I have that? That's kind of where it's at. And I actually want people to think that in business too. When this transition happens and they're going from a job where they know exactly how much money is coming in every month and things can be very well thought out and planned out, it is going to be different when you move into something else and you're not exactly sure
yeah,
where that money is coming from. You're going to have to switch some mentality and you're going to have to switch some budgeting, and that is extremely healthy, because if you live a few years not really knowing how much money is going to come in the next month, when money starts to come in, you're going to be a lot better with that money. Cryptocurrency has helped me be more patient than anything else that I've done.
mhm,
And really for about a year and a half, I really treated it like a business, and it made me so patient. um, and patient is probably the best word. It made me so patient that I could probably get into any investment now and just feel like it's kind of a breeze,
mhm,
because it's not so up and down. And really, crypto kind of mimics the feelings you're going to get in a business.
yeah.
Like, oh
Yeah.
crap, it's down 10% today. Oh, it's up 15%. Life is amazing. Oh no, it's down 20. I'm going to lose everything. Oh, it's back up. I've broken even. That's the life of owning a business.
Yeah. It's a roller coaster.
10 years later, you're like, dang, I got rich off of Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's still that patient aspect. I think too, a lot of the guys that I think about that are really successful, that I look up to and kind of, um, and not just, I mean, I'm not even talking about like celebrity guys, like guys from the community or the town that I grew up in that I know of that have done well. The focus wasn't even necessarily on the money. They were doing what they love to do,
Yeah.
and what they like to work in. Um, and then the money came, you know, later,
Yeah.
but it wasn't, but the money was second to the passion and the, kind of the what they wanted to pursue things. So, I mean, that's kind of an interesting thing to think about too. I think making these kind of transitions is the money can't be, I mean, the money can be the ultimate goal. That's fine. But to really get the fulfillment part, it's got to be finding something that you really like to do and really can enjoy doing. And then the money, I think, just naturally comes as a byproduct as, because you're going to add more quality and
Yeah.
put more passion into it and that kind of stuff anyway. So,
Yeah. Well, and I think part of what we talk about is legal, moral, and ethical. And what's nice there is then you work with people that are legal, moral, and ethical. And so their businesses are doing things that are legal, moral, and ethical. And you can do unethical things and make a ton of money. I just could never feel good about that. And so, these people that are coming and they're adding value and then the money comes, it's like, it feels like legit,
yeah.
just feels good, like a capitalistic economy should.
Well, and I think you can identify those people from along, like initial interactions in a business sense. Um, I've got business partners that just, we could just kind of, even though we didn't have a great, didn't know each other real well before, like you can just kind of feel that, okay, this is a person I can trust,
Yeah.
and off you go. Um, and in one of the, I think it was one of the Napoleon Hill books where he's interviewing Andrew Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie said that that was one of the biggest thing is being able to work with people with a minimum of friction. One of his biggest factors for success or whatever. And so I think that, the more that we can be that way, it's so much easier to just, I mean, making money ethically in itself really is not that hard anyway,
Yeah.
right? And so I don't understand why people think they need to cheat or
Yeah.
whatever it is, because um, so much more enjoyable and fun and really pretty simple when
Yeah.
you get down to it, to just do things the right way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It is interesting and sad when you're like, hey, they're doing so good. And then all of a sudden, like an ethics complaint comes out and you're like, what?
yeah,
It is
yeah,
it is crazy. So there was one that we were discussing the other day, and this guy was getting like big money in dividends, like $50,000 every 2 months,
hmm.
like doing really well,
Hmm.
but then started skimming off the business. And it wasn't skimming that much comparative to his dividends. He ends up getting fired and put in jail. It's like, was it worth it? You're making $50,000 every 2 months. You're making, what is that, 60,000 a year, 600,000 a year,
Yeah,
and you're getting thrown in jail over $50,000. Like, was it worth it? No, it wasn't worth it. You can't
hmm,
live with yourself. You can't be happy. You can't sleep. You can't just
hmm,
do it right. Because I would
yeah,
actually hate to one coach anybody um, that I find out later was doing things wrong, or even worse, get myself to the end of life and be like, huh, wonder how I would have done if I didn't cheat.
yeah.
That would suck.
Well, and our whole basis of this is fulfillment,
Yeah,
right? How can you feel fulfilled by cheating your way to it?
yeah,
Fulfillment, true fulfillment, I think, um, probably to everybody is, hey, I accomplished that. It was really hard. Man, I keep
COVID.
getting something,
Yeah.
and I think I've had that like a half a dozen times already. So I don't think that I don't think it's that. But you know, all of us I think want that to say I did that. I accomplished that. It was hard, but I did it and I succeeded. So
Yeah.
anyway.
So someone came to you and they're like, "Hey, we're in an elevator. It's the elevator pitch.
Hmm.
You've got 2 minutes. How would someone go out and start their own business?"
Identify a need that interests you. Um, do a little bit of groundwork. Make sure that the need is there, whether that's looking to see if somebody else is doing it in the community or somebody else is doing it in another community. Um, kind of do that gut check. Make sure that um, you know, to me, the gut checks everything. Like, okay, I think that this is something that people are going to want. Um, and then just have the mentality of I'm going to make it happen
Yeah.
no matter what, instead of, oh, we'll see how it pans out or whatever. No, that's what I really want to do. I'm going to make that happen.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the biggest point, because there's going to be um, pushback on everything. And it's just having the mindset of, okay, I don't care. Because this is what I want to do. I'm going to make it happen no matter what. I'll
Yeah.
figure it out along the way.
Yeah. I like that.
That might have been longer than 2 minutes. How about you?
Really, it wouldn't be much different than that at all. I mean, it's find what is going to fulfill you or that you believe is going to fulfill you. Be open to change and get ready to fail forward. All the lines, fail forward, fake it till you make it happen, all of that. Just that's really it. Um, if you want to do it, do it. Don't talk about it. We can say if this, if that, if this align, the stars are never going to align. They're not going to be even close to aligning. So you might as well do it now
Hmm.
and just make it happen.
That's what I like about I've the make it happen. Like, I even find myself saying it there, but I picked it up from you, when we were working together. That's something that I've noticed with you. You've always said is make it happen. We will make it happen. Let's make it happen. And I think that that is probably the key, is because it's not going to happen naturally. It's not going to happen easily. It's not going to happen, um, you know, it's not going to be simple, but just having that mindset of we'll make it happen, like no matter what. Like, if there's an earthquake and it takes out my house, we
Yeah.
will make it happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I like that.
Cool.
It's a good motto.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm sure I picked it up from somewhere. I wish I knew where we could throw the credit because I probably didn't come up with it. But yeah, we just need to make it happen and know that anyone who you work for right now is also making it happen. And they're probably just as confused in life as you are.
It's a good
It
point.
just doesn't seem like that. Everything seems secure, and not to be a downer doomsdayer, but everything seems more secure than it is. So put it in your own hands. You interview yourself, and if you can sell yourself good enough to get the job that you have, or the spouse that you have, or the girlfriend, boyfriend that you have, um, be that salesman to yourself. Go out, make it happen.
I like it. I think that's an awesome ending.
Sweet. Okay. Have a good day, everybody.
We'll see you.